Alrighty, here's another little update on the Deutz Lima generator here. I've installed all the injection pumps and the new injectors there, or the replacement injectors, as well as put the other transfer pump on, the other lift pump, because the one that came with this unit wasn't working very well at all. It would hardly suck fuel. So went and did all that, primed the system, and started out pretty well. But had a problem with the engine right off the bat. It sounded all right, wasn't missing or anything, but the RPMs would just slowly drop over the, well, not really slowly, over the course of maybe 15 seconds. The RPM would drop and then go all the way down, and then the engine would just stall right out. So I'm looking over it, I noticed that actuating the throttle lever didn't really change anything, and so I start going into it a little bit deeper. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this in the other video, but the control rack for the injectors seemed a little bit tight, and I could see where it was slightly bent on the number 1 injection pump notch, or the control notch. And I think I mentioned that in the last video, but maybe not. And that bend, I attribute that to the previous owner, who ruined the first 3 injection pumps, the original 3 injection pumps, tried to install it without having the control pin lined up in the rack there. So, but from looking at it from this angle, you couldn't really tell. It was bent too badly. So I ended up, if I pulled the rack back out manually, the engine would run again, and then slowly it would go back down, all the way down the idle, and then just stall right out. So ended up having to take the front cover of the motor off to access the control rack, which is this right here. It's just basically a piece of stamp steel like this, about that thick, that runs all the way down through the 3 injection pumps and controls each one of the control sleeves in each plunger. So previously this wouldn't move like this. You had to actually push it in and pull it out, and it was very tight. Now, I thought that might have just been because the engine had sat for a while and had some water enter it, and it was just a little bit snug. I thought that if I ran it a little bit and got it nice and hot, that the hot oil would free that up, but that wasn't the case. So when I pulled this rack out, or the control rod here, and I looked at it along its edge, along its length, I could definitely see where it was all wavy, because it has to go through 2 supports, one on this end, and then there's another support for it here that slides in. And of course the supports for it are a tight fit on the actual rod itself, so if it's out of whack a little bit, it's not going to work. So straighten that out, and now it works like it's supposed to. So I'm going to reassemble it. I believe that was a problem. So here's the governor here. You can see here. These timing belt gears are just sitting on the shaft here. There's a front cover that goes on, and the gears going afterward. I just have the gears on so I can rotate the cam and the crank. Again, had to pull the oil pump off and all that stuff to pull that front cover off. Also pulled the oil pan while I was at it, just because, like I said, some water had entered this engine over the course of it sitting over at the yard where I keep all my stuff. And that was my fault primarily, because I had the 3 injection pumps removed and I had rags shoved in each hole. I had the cover on here, but I had a tarp over the whole unit, and the tarp had blown off and I didn't realize it through a rainstorm. And water, of course, had absorbed through the rags and trickled into the engine. So no harm done, but just some really milky, sludgy stuff at the bottom of the oil pan. So I just pulled that completely, pulled the oil pickup and all that stuff. But it looks good under there. The oil pan's been off before. I'm not sure why, but everything looks nice. So this should be a good runner when it's all back together. I'm going to reinstall the oil pan, the oil pickup, and maybe even the front cover today. But I can't get the unit running today. Primarily because, well, I probably could, but I'm going to wait for the correct tools to time this engine. There's no timing marks at all on these, on the belt gear or the belt cog for the crank and the cam, and these gears are not keyed onto the crankshaft or the camshaft. I did not realize that when I first took it apart. Of course, only after it was apart did I realize it. You actually, typically when you do any kind of service like this, if you're going to replace the timing belt or something, there's a set of timing pins that you buy. They're actually a tool from Deutz that you thread it into the block over here, right there. That times the crank. And there's another one, I just have a little rod shoved in here now. You time the cam through that hole. Now, I'm kind of familiar with this operation because I worked on a couple 3208 cats, and when you do an injection pump on anything or anything like that on those engines, it's pretty much the same procedure. You rotate the engine till both the hole in the crank and the hole in the cam line up, you shove the pins in, and you can take it all apart. And just make sure the pins are in place when you put it back together, and it'll be all in time. So, the interesting thing is there's a hole in the cam like you'd expect for the pin to slide into, but there's not a hole in the crankshaft. Really, what happens was when you thread that pin in through the block going this way, it actually contacts the crank throw for the number 1 cylinder, and that pin is made to a specific length so that when you thread it all the way in and you rotate the crankshaft till it contacts that pin, that sets the degree point, well, what top dead center would be. So, if that pin is, a 1/4 inch off or less, that's going to skew the timing significantly. So, like I said, I could probably do it by eye or just by measuring it where top dead center is. But like I said, I'm not sure if that's the case. Is with that factory timing pin from Deutz, is the crank really at top dead center, or is it a little this way or a little bit that way? So I figure just wait for the parts and put it back together right. So that's that for now.